Hello everyone. In this module, we'll be looking at the principles and elements of design. I was actually planning to skip this before and go into, practical flyer design. But then I know that if a designer does not know these basic principles beyond just hearing them once, the person would have issues later in his or her design journey. So let's basically just look at the principles and elements of design. We'll be looking at elements of design, we'll be looking at basic color theory, and lastly we'll go into the principles of design. So let's say you are trying to cook a particular meal and you have the ingredients but you don't know how to cook. And then there's a particular guy, your friend, who knows how to cook but does not have the ingredients. Now, let's say the two of you are in remote locations, that is, you are not at the same place, then neither of you would actually be able to cook. The person who has the ingredients might actually attempt cooking, but the food that the person would eventually cook will be bad. A designer can have all the elements, can have all the tools, can have all the shapes, colors, the brand assets, the logos, the free pick downloaded assets. You can have all the ingredients, but if you don't know how to cook, well, you can still attempt to cook. Your cooking will just be bad. If we bring that into design, it means if you have the elements but you don't have the principles, then your end result would just be a bad design. And on the other hand, for someone that only knows how to cook, that is, the person has the principles but does not have the elements of design. The person knows how to cook but does not have the ingredients. The person can't do anything. So you would need the elements and the principles of design, everything working together to actually create a good design. So firstly, we'll be looking at the elements of design, and I wouldn't really be going in depth into each of these because they are more like things you can just pick up. We have line, we have shape, we have form, we have texture, we have space, we have color. There's no need for me to kind of start explaining. This is basically a line, right? We all know what a line is. Then shapes, you can have a rhombus, you can have a square, you can have a rectangle. You would see these elements in the sign. You can have a circle. These are the things that come together to make up your design. Then we can have form. Yeah, form is, we have a shape called a square, right? So when it comes to form is basically a three-dimensional representation of that shape. That's something like this. So this is a cube now. So this is a shape, this is a shape, and this is form. So let's say I'm designing a flyer and this is my flyer now. Just basically a sketch. This is the footer, this is the logo, this is the model I want to use in my design. Let's say my model is here, and then I have a rectangle here, and on that rectangle we have texts, and then at the back there's like dots background, or a background of like any form of color. So this model is basically a form, because whatever model you are using, if it's a human being, if it's maybe an image of a telephone, look at this slide for example. This model I have here is a form because it's three-dimensional, the person is not flat. Then we can have texture. In the previous tutorial we actually designed a flyer, and I'm going to show you an example of texture. This is the last flyer we designed, and if we come here, this layer, that I named effects. Let me turn it off. Click on this eye icon. You can see that it feels less grainy, right? So texture is kind of, your flyer is on a digital space. So texture is kind of what you add that makes it feel solid. Like it makes it feel like something you can touch and you would feel it, not just something completely smooth. You get, so it's one of the things you can add to the sign. Let me turn it on back so you can see the difference. Let me zoom in so you can see it better. You can see me turning it on and turning it off. With the texture added, I think this background has a lot of texture on its own, so it might confuse you. Let me turn it off and use let me use a different shape and fill it with black, solid black. Exactly. Now if you look at this, it just looks like black, right? It looks like something that is basically on the screen alone. It's not something you can touch or feel. So if you add this texture, you can see how it feels like it's coarse. Like if you touch it, you'll be able to feel some friction. You get, that's basically what texture is. So it's an element. Then space, the fact that I used space here, it's something called white space in the sign. So white space just basically takes your attention away from the white space and tells you, oh, focus on this part where the content is. And then white space is actually, it's a good concept that would explain better when we are talking of the principles and we get to simplicity. The only element I would really go into and explain is color, because as a designer, if you have no idea of how color works or what colors mean, then your design is just going to be bad, right? Colors make people feel your design. You get, now when I see a design, I'm not trying to point out that, oh, the person used blue color or the person used a dark shade of purple. Nobody thinks about that when they see a design. What's on their mind is really the feeling they get from the design. For example, I see a gender review or baby related flyer design. If the person designed it with black, I'm just going to feel like this doesn't make sense. Why would you design something for kids or babies with black? You use colors like pink, blue, vibrant colors. So colors have meaning. They invoke emotions. And we know the basic colors are red, yellow, and blue. Everything you see basically is made up of the colors red, yellow, and blue, right? So whatever you see on screen, whatever you see physically, if you see a leaf, your wall, the color of your fan, the color of your phone pouch, the color of the leaves around you, the color of your plate at home is basically made up of a combination of one or two or sometimes three of these colors. Now we basically have red, we have yellow, and we have blue. Every other color comes from this. So if you combine red and yellow, you get orange. You combine yellow and blue, you get green, right? And for those that have just the basic knowledge of this color in science, there's indigo and there's violet. But let's take this out. This is not part of what we should be concerned about now. So let's look at it here. We have red and yellow. In between it, we have orange. Yellow and blue. We have green. Red and blue. Here we have purple, which I think is what people call violet. Now this knowledge is going to be important if you are eventually going to print out your designs at a point in time. You'd have to print out your designs at a point in time. So you would need to know stuff like color modes, RGB, CMYK, how all these things work. Now, color schemes. These things same here, both the elements and the principles. They are not things you have to know like you are reading in school. This is design. Design is creative. You don't need to read, you don't need to cram. Yeah, you study, but not studying like you want to have it in your head. Most times, these things you know them better the more you design. But it's also important that you still have the basic knowledge of these things so you don't struggle later in your design career. So if you are going to skip any video in this series, please make sure you do not skip this, because if you miss this, you might have issues later when I start referring to stuff like this is this color, this is this principle I'm following here. So now you have different color schemes. We have monochromatic, and that's when you do a design and you basically just use one color throughout. And we see that in the receipts you get when you make payments, not those that you get from supermarkets. Those are basically black and white, which is also monochromatic. But some receipts that are printed out, like proper receipts that at least have some color, you would say that it's just one color. The text, the lines, everything is just one color. So you have monochromatic color schemes. It basically means you are using one color throughout your design. Then you have analogous, low contrast. Analogous is basically you are picking colors that are close to each other and the wheel. You have complementary, you are picking colors that are on opposite sides of the wheel and gives you high contrasts. Then there's triadic. Now, do you have any business knowing this? Well, you can decide to learn, you can decide not to. The thing is, when you design, eventually you go online to search for inspiration from other designers, see what these people have done, and 99% of the time, you also get your color inspiration from these designs. So if a design looks good to you, there's a very high probability that the person actually picked good combination of colors. You don't need to want to do a design and start thinking, do I use analogous? Do I use complementary? These are just things I'm explaining so you don't sound ignorant as a designer when someone else mentions it in a conversation. Then we have other schemes like tetradic. Tetradic, I think, is basically you pick this color, pick this color, pick this color, pick this color, and then you have a kind of rectangular shape. You can see this is triadic, it's triangle. Then tetradic, tetra is 4. So you are using 4 colors, 2 on opposite sides of your wheel. And the split complementary, which I think is you picking, let's say this, for example, then this and this. Right? So you say complementary is up on the opposite sides, right? So normally it should be this blue and this shade of yellow, but then you are splitting, so it's kind of like this. So something between complementary and triadic you get. So they are just knowledge you should have, maybe for bragging or argument's sake or for context, but it doesn't really matter in your design. I never think about this when I'm actually designing. Now this is the important part, like a very, very important part of color theory. What some colors mean. Now colors get their meaning from a variety of places. For example, if you see something painted green, what comes to your mind? You start thinking of nature, you start thinking of health, start thinking of something healthy, right? That's color coming from nature. Color can come from culture. For example, culturally for Africans, Nigerians, even in most part of the world actually, white signifies um peace, something good, something clean, and then you see the color black. Color black sometimes represents premium, but in contrast to white, it actually can signify death, can signify something dirty. You get, so culturally, color can change too. Color in Japan is different from color in Nigeria. What we see colors as would be different. So when you are designing, you have to look at the audience too, right? What does this color mean to my audience? Now, in Japan, orange is associated with happiness, both in Japan and China. Now, they are, regardless of the fact that colors have meanings culturally, like colors vary by culture, there are definitely like general meanings for some particular colors that if you see it, what would come to your mind is peace. For example, if you see red, what comes to your mind is passion, love. Okay, maybe a person is angry, maybe it's an horror movie and they are trying to represent blood, so it can also signify danger. For example, let's go to, we're on Pinterest now and we'll search for Valentine flyer design. Valentine is an event that signifies the celebration of love between individuals, right? So let's search for the signs people have done. You can see what's dominant here, red. You see people using red. You barely see people using black really, or a color like blue, except it's specific to the brand. Look at this, they used blue, but then you still see a lot of red in the design, right? So red signifies love. They have to use red in the signs that are related to love. Orange signifies creativity, youth, enthusiasm. Green signifies, nature growth, harmony. Let's search for um, farm farm flyer design. This is Pinterest I've mentioned several times where you get inspiration from. You can see the dominant color is green. So when you are thinking of farm, you are definitely thinking of nature, you are thinking of food, right? You are thinking of healthy things. So green definitely signifies that, signifies nature, signifies growth. Then black signifies wealth. It signifies something premium. Sometimes when you combine black with gold, it signifies premium. Let's look for inspiration on award designs. I want to design awards now. Award flyer design. You can see we kind of have black, then we have gold. You would see it a lot, black, gold, black and gold, black and gold. So black here signifies something premium. And even for dates, actually, it's rare for people to use black for dates, because culturally for us, we see dates not as a bad thing necessarily, right? We even celebrate when someone dies, that they've lived a good life. So it wouldn't make sense for you to make a design for them and then you use color black. But when you are looking at an horror movie now, you can definitely use black to signify the darkness or the death in it. For example, let's see a poster design or a movie cover design for an horror movie. You can see we have a lot of black. You can see it's dark. Look at this now. Haunted trophies. You can see the fact that they used black. The designs are dark. So black can also represent death as much as it can represent premium. Look at the red we mentioned the other time. The beautiful combination of black and red. When you see black and red, what comes to your mind? Danger, because red itself signifies danger. It looks like blood. Then they now add black to it. That's just you telling your viewer this is danger, right? So without looking at the content of any of these designs, look at all the inspirations we've seen so far. I didn't read the contents of any of them. We're just going through everything, trying to see the colors they use for specific sets of the signs. Now, without reading the text inside, just looking at the designs, it's already sets a mood. You get it already tells you, oh, this is what this design is most likely going to be about. So colors set the mood, colors evoke emotions. And lastly, we'll look at pink and blue. You can go online, like I always say, you can just keep learning. Go online to look at other colors and what they generally mean. Look at pink now. If you see a pink design, you know this is kind of for a baby or for a lady. For example, let's look at a lady's birthday flyer design. I think nowadays they use pink less, but if you still see pink, you kind of see pink a lot. Yeah, they use pink less, but look at, you see pink, you see purple, colors close to that. And then let's look at baby review flyer design. You see colors like blue and pink. Of course, if you've watched TikTok videos, you'd see them using blue to signify that it's a boy child or a male child, then pink to signify that it's a female child or a girl child. So colors have meaning. They pass a message across. You can't just use colors randomly in your design. Color has meaning and colors should pass information. Everything in your design should be intentional. Your aim should be to pass information. Now we'll look at H, S, B, and X in the sign. And let me go to Photoshop. Let's just draw a rectangle here and give it. Okay, now I'm going to come to this fill. You should not be bothered about this yet. I'm not explaining flyer design yet. We'll be going into that from the next video till the end. We'll be doing practical flyer design from then. Let me try to select colors, and what can you see here? You can see H, you can see S, and you can see B. You can see there's a kind of gap here, right? So it's different. Then there's R, there's G, there's B. So let's say I want to show, say, you can see the values, the numbers in these spaces actually change as I move around. So let me pick this, and we'll come back to look at HSB. Now HSB literally means hue, saturation, and brightness. Now hue is the actual name or the general base color. So your hue can be red, can be blue, can be green, can be yellow. That's basically what hue means, guys. So let's come back here and look at it. My slider here, you can see my slider is on H, right? So it means that if I slide up or down, I'm basically going through the colors, right? I'm just changing from red, then I want to change to purple, then I want to change to blue, then I want to change to, I think this is cyan, I want to change to green, yellow, and back to red. So this is basically what hue is. It's that particular color itself. Now saturation is the intensity of the color, right? And it goes from being very vivid, like you are seeing this red is just out there in your face, like red in its full power or blue in its full power. That's fully saturated. And then zero saturation is basically you take out every color from it and you end up with gray. Some of us that are a bit older might have had experience with black and white television before. So you can see a black and white television has zero saturation because there's basically no color in it. You get, Now let's go back to Photoshop, and I would use it to explain. Let me switch this from H to S. Look at this, my slider. It goes from fully red to no hint of red in it at all. Right? I'm still on the color red. If you go back to E, you can see I'm still on red. For example, let me even move to green and change the saturation to fully green. Now I'm on S. Let's go back. I'm on S here. This is H, this is S, and this is saturation. My slider here is on fully green. My slider here is on no trace of color at all. That's basically what saturation is. So saturation goes from your vivid color to gray, or it goes from vivid to white, whichever one it is. But basically, saturation is the intensity of the color, right? How much of the color is literally in your face. I don't want to use the word bright, because brightness is another term on its own, and that's the last one, B. Brightness is basically how bright the color is, and it goes from white to black. Now let's go back again, go to our slider, change it to brightness. Let me change the hue to something like this. The saturation shouldn't be 0, so we can see the effect of brightness. Let's click OK, then go back. Yeah, let's change brightness. Now brightness is from you seeing the color, whichever color it is, to not seeing anything at all. That's completely black. You can even see it here without us clicking on OK. The current color and then the new color. You can see the new color is changing from, we are seeing the color a little bit, we are seeing it a little bit, and we can see it fully now. But then when you bring down the brightness to 0, look at the value 0 here, it means total darkness, right? There's no light at all. Everything is going to be black. For us, we only know maximum, if maybe you know a lot of colors, you would know like 15, 20, 25 colors. But then there are millions of colors a computer can recognize. So HSB is just a way for your PC to be very, very specific about the color you want and the color you want to choose. So it's just a way of representing color, and X is also another way of representing colors. HSB is more of something humans can easily understand, and X, X, HEX, not X as in Twitter. For X, if you kind of do a little bit of research, you might be able to figure out what X code is or how it works. But then X is basically for the computer, right? It's just the way a computer stores values for a certain color. In case you are following along, please return this back to H, because that's the mode I use mostly, and that's what most people use anyway. So if you have it on S or you have it on B, you're just going to get yourself confused. So returning back to H, I was only moving it around to explain the concept of HSB or HSL. So let's have this here. Please don't worry about what I'm doing here. We are not designing, right? I'm just explaining the concept. Now let's look at the value of this color. Let's come here, click on fill. The value is 265 173 for HSB. 265 173. So let's say 265 173. These are the HSB values. And then the X code of this same color, which is the code the computer itself uses, is going to be, let's come here. Now it usually starts with an hash, right? That's how you are going to know it's an S code, and it's usually 6 characters, mixture of numbers and letters. So let's copy this 4F00BB and type it here. 4F00BB. Am I correct? Good. Now let me go to any other design software. This is why these values are important, right? Now there's no way for me to know or find that okay, this is purple with this particular shade, and I'll go to a software without these actual specific values and I'll be able to pick it out. You get? So these values help us to be specific and tell the computer this is exactly what I want. For example, let me go to another design software, Figma, and just draw a circle. Let me do a circle here. Now I'm not teaching Figma, and this course is about Photoshop, but this is to explain a concept. Now I can come to, let me increase the user interface size so you can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, so I can come to this view here and change it from D99D9 to what's my FX code here, 4F00BB. 4F00BB. If I click on enter, it picks the exact same color for me. You can see I have the exact same color, but let's say I don't have this information and I only have this color picker bar like I have in Photoshop. I would be struggling. I would have to, oh, is this it? Let me go back and check. No, that's not it. It only looks close. I'll move again. Go back and check. You get? So it's a lot of stress. X code helps you to be specific, and HSB also, I can say 265.173 if it's HSB I want to use. And click here. You can see HSB here, 265 100 then 73. Let me pick 73, and if I click on enter, it picks the exact same color, right? It picks the exact same color for me. So that's basically HSB and Xcode for you and what it does. And now we move to principles of design. Now this is the most important concept you'll ever learn in design. It's not the tricks you see on YouTube. It's not how to crop out this thing or how to create a good text effect that is important, but how to use these things without breaking the basic laws in design, because design also has its own rules which you can obviously break, but at least you have to know the rules enough to break them safely without shooting yourself in the leg, basically. Now I have a mnemonic for it. I mean this, and it's basically PS CHERUB A. So this is something you can always remember, like when you are done with your design, just kind of go to it. Did I follow these principles? And PS as in Photoshop, cherubs as in angels, very important beings. Principles are important in your design. Then A to signify that, oh, this is a top class important thing in your design, whatever you wish to. Just know this is a mnemonic. And P represents proximity. I'm going to explain each and every one of it better. S is simplicity. I've even mentioned this before, probably several times. What am I doing? Sorry, simplicity. C is contrast. H is hierarchy. I somehow usually have difficulty spelling this hierarchy. I don't know if it is IE or EI. And E is emphasis. S stands for repetition. U stands for union or unity. B stands for balance, and A stands for alignment. Yeah, and I put it at the back intentionally, like make it separate because it's the last thing you usually check in the sign. You check it while you're designing, but before you submit your design, you have to go through alignment because it's usually obvious. Like people will see if your design is not aligned, they will kind of see it immediately. So it's the last thing you check before you at least submit. So PS CHERUB A. So let's go through each of these principles one by one. And I know this is not as much fun as it was when we actually designing the previous flyer we have. Where is it safe? When we're designing this, but then I was able to do this because I basically like have the knowledge of these principles. And I'm going to tell you this, while I was designing this, I wasn't thinking that, oh, have I followed H, have I followed S, have I followed P? No, I wasn't thinking about all that. It's something that gets registered in your subconscious the more you design. But as a beginner, like starting out, because that's what I did also when I started out, I check if I followed these principles because it's easy for you to overlook them when you're just starting out. But when you've done a lot of design, it would have registered in your head without, like, it's just something you do subconsciously without thinking. So contrast. Now when we talk about contrast in design, we are basically just talking about difference. Contrast happens when you put two or more visual elements on your canvas that are noticeably different from one another. Now let's look at this slide itself. We have the color black here, and then we have this dirty, should I say dirty? We have this off-white. Now the fact that these colors are so like different creates a lot of contrast, and it allows you to see the text clearly. Now you might not see this, like you might not notice it. You won't, when you see design, it won't come to your head. Most especially if you're not a designer, you won't just jump into your head that, oh, this has a lot of contrast. But by the time you are having difficulty differentiating things in a design, when everything just looks like they are together, then there isn't much contrast. Let me create a new design. Let's go for 4x5, which is 4, 5, 300. Yeah, I think I'm good. All right. Now this same thing we have here, one contrast, then a kind of background. Let me even take a screenshot of this and use the same background here. Good. Let's see one contrast. Now I typed something on this background with the color white, but then the background itself is not exactly white, but it's something close to it. You can see that if we zoom in, you can kind of see my text TL. But if you design like this, nobody would like your design because there isn't much contrast. Everything just looks the same. But if I change this text, if I change it to black, you can see how it shows. It stands out. It looks different compared to the background. So there's an important thing to note in contrast, which is context is absolutely integral to contrast, right? You cannot have contrast when it's only one element you have on your canvas. For example, I'm using this to explain contrast, and what am I comparing it with? Basically, contrast is you comparing it with another element, right, in your design and saying, oh, this stands out compared to this. Let's have this ellipse. Let me pick this color. Yeah. So let me delete this, and let's assume that our background does not exist, which itself provides some sort of context for the contrast. But look at this. What does it really tell us? Nothing really, actually. But let me create another ellipse or another circle close to it, and then suddenly we have context that, oh, our new circle is bigger than the previous one. So contrast is you comparing two things, right? There has to be another thing to compare to actually say there's contrast. Now notice that these two colors are the same. Initially, when I was talking about that text example, I used the color white and the color black to explain contrast. That's contrast by color. But then contrast can also be by size, right? You saying, oh, this is bigger than this, that's contrast, right? Difference. That's basically what contrast means. It means two elements on your canvas are different. Let me add something else. Let me add a third one to it. Let me add another circle and then put the color black. Now what stands out for you? It's this black. So if you see something like this, what will come to your mind is, oh, the person probably wants us to look at this black. This black is closer to us. These ones are faded out, right? So you are comparing this black, the color of this black, to the colors of this other two. So contrast can be between two elements, can be between three elements, but it basically can be between one element. You are comparing it to another. You get it has to stand out from another thing in your design. You are not limited to just size and color, which I've explained. You can create contrast by using shape, scale. Scale is basically size, so I don't this shouldn't be here. You can create contrast by using typography, right? Different fonts. You can create contrast by using texture. You can even combine them, right? Like using a massive bold font next to a tiny delicate one. For example, if I'm designing, let's even go back to this and say hello, I'm Chroma, and I love these pictures. Where is it? Let me create a copy of this and let me reduce the size. And here Chroma designed this. Let's change the weight of the font to regular. Good. Now I've created some contrast. Again, what is contrast? It's simply two elements on your canvas having some sort of difference, right? Now this is bigger than this, and the font is also different. So this is me combining two things just to like create contrast. So it doesn't mean I can only use color, or I can only use size, or I can only use text. I can use the size of the text. I can use different texts. I can use different colors of text to create contrast. Now all these things would make sense when we start doing actual designs from the next module. Like from the next module to the end of this series, we'll just be designing flares, and I'll be mentioning these principles and they all make sense. Now emphasis is what you actually want to stand out in your design, like the word suggests, right? What you're emphasizing, like this is the viewer. What do you want the viewer to see first? What is the most important information you want to pass across that even if the person does not see the rest of the design, the person is not interested, at least the person should see this. And the easiest way to actually emphasize something is size, right? If something is bigger than the rest assured that your viewer is actually going to look at that thing first because they feel like, oh, this is important. That's why the person made it bigger. Now, this is one thing you can mention when you definitely have this issue eventually in your design career when you are designing a flyer for someone and the person just keeps telling you, oh, make the logo bigger. You can tell them that if the logo is too big, then it's going to grab people's attention rather than the content of the design, which is not what we want. We are not designing a flyer for people to see your logo. We are designing a flyer for people to see the information in the flyer. So your logo does not necessarily need to be as big as you want it to be. It's not your logo you want to see, but the content of the design. That's emphasis, right? You can create this dominance using size, which is the most common thing. You can use a pop of color, you can use position, or just isolating an element by itself. Yeah, let's move to hierarchy. Let me actually use a flyer design to explain this emphasis. Alright, so I figured out, I'll just use flyers I've designed before for someone to explain all these principles. Now, emphasis is what you want to stand out, what you want your user to see first. And how do you know emphasis? Pick a flyer and show it to someone, and within 3 seconds, ask them what they saw in the design. Now, whatever they see is what stood out for them, and that's what you probably emphasized. So, if that is not the information you intended to pass across, that means your design has failed. For example, let's look at emphasis here. You just looking at this 1, 2, 3, this particular flyer. What do you see? You see quality education, affordable healthcare, and job creation. You don't necessarily need to actually go into this and look at the text here. It's blurry because I imported JPEGs, not the actual designs. So you look at this quality education, blah blah blah. Together we can create a future for everyone who has, but not everyone is going to read that, right? So this thing here is our emphasis. This is the most important information we want people to see, and you see it across each design. What's the emphasis here? Strong families build strong connections. There's even a mistake here. I wrote build twice. What's the emphasis here? Environment matters. Look at this. This text is not as emphasized as this because what's the message that's going to pass across is simply that environment matters. Look at good. This is a very good example. What's the emphasis here? Transparent governance. The whole sentence is a vote for this person, is a vote for transparent governance. But we've emphasized transparent governance because it's our key message, you get. So emphasis is the most important thing, like what you want the viewer or your end user or your reader to actually see first in your design. Then what's the difference between contrast and emphasis? Because emphasis is you trying to say, oh, instead of looking at the rest of this, at least please you must see this because this is the most important. And contrast is also differentiating between two. So it might be like there's a blurry line between the two, but there's a difference. So contrast is simply making objects distinguishable from one another, right? Making things look different. Emphasis now uses contrast to make the viewer look at something first. That's the difference. Now next we'll be looking at hierarchy. Now quickly look at this flyer design. good. It says you read this first, and I can bet this is what you read first. Then you came here, then you read this next, followed by this one, and then if you want to know more, you read this. Most likely at the very end, reading this body text takes the most effort due to the. And then lastly, it's possible you probably didn't even notice this. It says, and if we are lucky, you will notice this. Now let's look at some of the designs I did here and bring this principle in. So here we are looking at hierarchy, right? So hierarchy is like the order of importance of your information. So it's like another step away from emphasis. Emphasis is the most important one, but then after the most important one, what's the next important one? It's like guiding your viewer or your reader through your design. Which one should I use? Which one should I use? I would uh, I would explain it best. Alright, let's just use the first one. So look at this figure. It says you read this first. If you look at this design, this is the first thing you look at. So this is what I'm going to read first, right? And then according to this, it says then you read this next. You can see if you are kind of interested, you read this next. Then it says followed by this one. If there was something else, let's say around here or these people, you look at these people first. Then if you are interested, you can read this hashtag, right? That's you guiding your user. And then if you are very lucky, you know how many times have you seen a design and you've decided, oh, let me go and look at the footer, let me look at the social media and those, unless it's a giveaway and you are supposed to follow them, right? Or you just like this thing and you want to follow them on social media. So this part, it's essential. You have to add it to your design, but it's what people are going to kind of see last. Hierarchy is the order of importance of information in your design. It's arranging your elements so people instantly recognize their order of importance. Now if a design does not have any hierarchy at all, let me search online. Yeah, bad visual hierarchy. Now your user should not have to think a lot to understand what's going on in your design. If your user is, or your viewer, pardon me, I'm using the word user because I'm into UI UX design too, so we use user as the person that uses whatever design we make. Now look at this. Can I make this full screen? Let me download and open it in full screen so you can see. Now this design violates it violates every principle of design possible, because there's no contrast. Everything is just out in your face. There's no hierarchy. What am I supposed to read first here? What's the most important information? Okay, let's say I'm first, kind of. Let's say stands out, even though it doesn't. I've read I'm first. What do I read first? Okay, this stands out. So I'm reading I'm first, John second. Then food and drinks will be available through 145 to 30. What's this? Like, there's just too much. Like, you don't know what to read next after this. The designer did not try to guide you through his design, so the person has to kind of mentally arrange the information. And if the person looking at your design has to figure things out, they're most likely just going to swipe, especially if it's a social media design. They'll just skip that. What's this? Because they won't read it, and that means your design has failed. So next we look at repetition. People confuse repetition with, let's say I designed a logo for someone and the logo looks like this. This is just like a simple arrow. People confuse repetition with, I want to now make a design. I now have this in the background. And then this is my design, and it's kind of a pattern at the back, and I have my logo here. No, this is not repetition. Repetition is basically reusing the same or similar elements throughout your entire layout to create consistency. Back to what we've been using as example, let me erase this. Now, what do you see here that is repeated? Let's zoom out. You can see I repeated the color green, like you see green everywhere. You see, look at these fonts. You see that it's literally almost the same fonts. Even the style of the design, which is a big font for the main message, then smaller fonts for the copy. You see it's repeated throughout, like in a lot of places, except special cases like this. But even this, we have green, we have the small text, we have the big text. So the style remains the same, right? You are repeating even the footer. You can see I use this footer here, then I repeat the footer here, then I repeat the footer somewhere else. Did I? Yeah, I'm sure I did. Yeah, I have it here again, here again, here again. Then this footer also, I have it here, 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 here. Like I'm reusing elements in my design, and a mistake beginners make, right, is trying to be so cool and special and creative with every single design you do for a particular client, especially for a brand. You are designing for a brand, and today you use color yellow for them. Then tomorrow you use purple. Then the next day you use blue. Like there's no brand identity. Like there's nothing that tells you with the design that, oh, this design belongs to this particular person or this particular brand. And repetition is actually most important when you are looking at branding. For example, if you see color yellow, what comes to your mind? You might think of MTN, right? If you see red and you are talking about bank, you start thinking of UBA bank. Which other bank uses red? I think there's another bank. If you see orange, you think of GT Bank. Why? Because they've repeated these colors in several aspects of their existence, their design. Like if you see MTN's design, you just see yellow inside. You must see yellow. It's repeated, so it's not necessarily pattern. Like you're having a pattern at the back, like this one now. I have this one, this one, this one, this one. Four of it. This is not repetition. It's basically using same or similar elements throughout your entire layout to create consistency. Right now, look at what I said there. It's almost like subtle brainwashing, right? That you are programming your viewer's brain to see some things and just associate it with a particular brand or a particular person. We have alignment. Alignment is very, very important, and it's something that like usually prove to other designers that have even a little bit of experience. They will know if your design is not aligned. And we have several kinds of alignments, but the most important ones and the most common ones are edge alignments, then center alignments, then a mix of the two. Right? So we have mixed alignments, which is a mix of edge and center alignment. So let's basically go into Photoshop and explain that. So let's look at this. What alignments do we have here? We can see our text is kind of aligned to the left. This text is aligned to the left. These images are kind of in the center, you get, not really aligned to the left because we have equal space on the left and right. So it's aligned to the center. This is mixed alignments. Look at this text aligned to the left. Most times actually, when you are working with text should either be left aligned or center aligned, unless you are writing Arabic, which I think is right aligned, but text should be center or left aligned. So this is also mixed alignments. Look at this. I'm aligning everything. Look at everything is aligned to the left. You can see on this right, it's sort of like this. So this is not right alignment. This is left alignment. Look at this now. This comes like this, then like this, and like this, and the left two like this, and like this, and like this. But the center of each element, look at, if you do a line to the center, it kind of splits into two. So you know this is aligned like the center. Let me draw this here and use it to explain. Let's delete this and draw 3 rectangles. One, and make this ellipse. 1, 2, 3. Let's say these are different elements in our design. What's this? It's good. Let me have it like this. Now everything is scattered, guys. So let's work on alignments. Let's select the 3. I have the 3 selected like this. Now on the top here is where you see alignments in Photoshop, and you have this left aligned. The images are suggestive on their own. You can see left aligned, you can see right aligned. Then this one is aligned to the center. This one's this is aligned to the top, aligned to the bottom, then aligned to the center also, but horizontally instead of vertically here. And this one is for distributing elements really. So let's come back here. I want to align everything like these 3. I hope I've not selected something else. This is what I don't want. Let me lock. Yeah, let me lock this. If I click on left, you can see everything is aligned to the left. Click on right, everything is aligned to the right. Click on center, everything is aligned to the center. Let me use this to explain top and bottom alignments. Let's space it out like this. Good. I want to, okay, let me change this like this, like so. Changing the height of this. Good. So you can see it visually. Let's try to align this to the top. You can see everything is aligned to the top, then aligned to the bottom, then aligned to the center, but horizontally instead of vertically like before. Let's do a vertical alignment of the 3 again. Look at, aligned to the center vertically, aligned to the center horizontally, aligned to the left, aligned to the right. So basically alignment is either at the edge, which is usually bottom, left, top, and right. Then alignment with the center horizontally or vertically. That's a principle you have to follow, and then your designs have to be aligned. You can see all my designs here. Look at this. This is aligned to the center, right? This is aligned to the left. There just have to be some alignments. Your design should not look scattered. Let's look at bad. Let's search for bad alignments on Pinterest, so you can see an example of bad alignments. Okay. Yeah, apart from the fact that this does not have contrast, like it violates a lot of laws. Well, let's look at this. This is it at the center, or they are trying to put it on the left? Is this one at the right, or it's center aligned? Like it's just scattered. Look at this. This is bending. Look at this. This is skewed. This one is recycling. This not even at the center. Look at the angle, the positioning of angle. Like the alignment is just bad. So these things, if you don't follow these rules, your design will just be bad, right? What's wrong with this? There's little contrast, there's no alignment, like it just all these bad designs are bad because they violate these basic principles. So if your design is looking like this, you are definitely violating one or probably all of the principles I've mentioned. Then we have balance. Now, balance is one of the things you can't really measure. For alignment now, even though I can see it like without going to Photoshop, I can see a design if it's aligned or not. I can still come to Photoshop and you know maybe bring a ruler and bring it here. I see, oh, it's perfectly aligned. Get. But balance, you can't really, you just feel balance. Like it's a matter of you designing and designing and designing, and things begin to feel off. Like this thing looks heavier on this side than on this side. For example, if I have a design like this and I put another set of elements here, this place looks completely empty, right? So it's not balanced. But if I put this here and I kind of put it even at the center, it looks better, more balanced, right? But balance is not something you should really worry about now. If you follow the rest of the principles, you are most likely going to have a balanced design. But the more you design, you can go on to read more about balance. I just mentioned it so you can know it exists, the concept exists, and the more you design, it just comes to you that this looks off, this does not look balanced. As the name suggests, it's intuitive. Now, proximity. Proximity is straightforward. It's just visually grouping objects together in your canvas. When you put elements close to each other, you are telling the viewer that these things are related. So you put related things side by side, right? So when there's proximity between elements, you know they are related. Look at this header here. We have the logo and then the name of the organization and the year. Imagine the logo is here and the organization is at the bottom here. It won't come to head that the logo is related to that name. You understand? For example, if I didn't have this, let me see, can I mask it? Alright, I have that mask. Now let's imagine the name we just covered here is at the bottom. Nothing would like quickly tell us, it won't be intuitive for us to think that these logos are related to whatever is at the bottom. We'll think what's at the bottom is a footer. So proximity is grouping related items together. Let's look at this design. So imagine I have this okay, I have my models. Let's say I put this here. Now if you see this, what will come to your mind is, oh, these five are together and this one is kind of special or different. The fact that these ones are close together, it tells you they are related, and this one that is far from them tells you, oh, it's kind of different. Now that reminds us of contrast, right? Remember, contrast is difference, and I said it's not only about size or color. You can use other things to indicate contrast too. Now you can use proximity to indicate contrast, right? You can use position to indicate contrast. The fact that the position of this is different from the position of this is already a difference, right? It just differentiates it. Now, do people think about these things when they see your designs? No, they don't think about these things. But they will know bad design, not because they know the principles, but they will just know this feels off. It's a feeling. But as a designer, you have to know what are those things that feel off. You have to know them specifically so you can avoid them. That's why we are learning the principles. The second to the last one is unity, and unity is basically like the ultimate goal of your entire layout. It happens when every single element in your design looks and feels like it genuinely belongs there. And unity is it's very close to simplicity. The principle of simplicity is that you remove unnecessary things from your design. And basically what unity is telling us is every single thing in your final design should look like it belongs there. You should not have things that are unnecessary. Things things that don't feel like they belong there. You are just adding them for adding sake. Don't add things to your design for adding sake. Everything should contribute to this design, should feel like it actually belongs there. That's basically unity. And simplicity, I've said this over and over and over again because it's just the most important principle of design. Keep it simple, stupid. It's not that when you finish designing, you start thinking, oh, what can I add to this design? Sometimes you do that actually. As I said, you know the rules enough to break them well, but you have to know the rules first. When you are done with your design, what should be on your mind is, what is in this flyer that does not necessarily need to be there? You remove it. That's you simplifying your design. And when you simplify your design, the main information the user will be able to see it very quickly. And that's basically simplicity helping your emphasis. When there aren't a lot of useless or unnecessary information, hierarchy is clear. Sometimes your design does not even feel balanced because it's not simple. There are a lot of unnecessary things that you have to remove. So simplicity is just very, very important. And this is the last principle, and this is the most important one at the same time. Always keep your design simple. Keep it simple, stupid. That's the key principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Yeah, so we'll go through it again. PS CHERUB A, and here we have proximity, simplicity, contrast, hierarchy, emphasis, repetition, balance, alignment. What is this U? Yeah, I forgot to explain U, but oh yeah, I think I explained it actually. Unity, right? I just forgot to add it in. So before I say goodbye, we'll look at the design and just try to vet it using the principles. So let me randomly pick one, and that will be this. Let's pick the last one. Proximity. Look at this every information here: the website, the Facebook handle, the IG handle, the TikTok handle. They are close to each other, right? So it tells us all this information are related. And very good. Look at this QR code. If I put this QR code somewhere else, you won't quickly know that, oh, this QR code is still talking about all these links here, so that you can scan easily and go there. Yes, but the fact that it's close to all these details kind of tells us that, oh, this QR code is related to this information you have here. So proximity, putting related things together. Let's look at simplicity. What do you see here that really does not pass information? The image passes information, the hashtag passes information, the main text does, the logo does, the footer does, passes information about the social media handles, and the QR code which leads to the website actually passes information. This little text here passes information. There's nothing here you can say you should remove that it's unnecessary. It's possible when I was designing this, I had ideas I wanted to add, but I felt like what message will it pass? So I just removed it. Keep it simple and stupid. That's simplicity. Now contrast. Contrast. Look at this is black, this is green. It stands out. It tells me, oh, this information is kind of different and important. Like we are trying to say, oh, families and connections are important information for me to look at, which is emphasis also. Contrast and emphasis, they are very, very related. Then hierarchy. Which information do you see first? Strong families build strong connections. That's where you see first. Then you see this next. Then you see this next, and if you are interested, you see this. That's hierarchy. Now imagine this information here, which is not as important as what I made big. then I'll be passing the wrong information because not everybody will read the most important thing if I make it small. Then repetition is, me repeating all these concepts across the design, the color. You can see everything looks green. The footer, the fonts, typography, I mean, and the fact that I used, imagery, you can see balance, right? It doesn't feel like it's heavy on one side. There's proper alignment too. Alignment helps a lot with balance actually. Like if your design is aligned, then it's most likely going to be balanced. Alright, so with this you have made it successfully to the end of this long explanation on principles and elements of design. And with this knowledge, trust me, you're already 50% of a very good designer. Even if you've not opened the software before, the fact that you know these principles, even if you don't really know them the way I'm talking about, it's like this, but you already have an idea, you already know that these things exist, then you've already taken yourself to another level in your design journey. So see you in the next class, and from the next one onward we'll just be designing flyers, and when things come up I'll just refer to these principles, that what I did here is this particular principle, and I'll take you through the actual process of now designing flyers in Photoshop, and I know that's what you've been waiting for. And if at this point you've not subscribed to this YouTube channel, please do well to like, subscribe, share with your friends. Let people know that this gem is available for them for free online. Alright, see you next time.